As protesters across the country demand change,
Say his name! Say his name!
policymakers and activists are looking at solutions.
I think this is a moment that demands leadership.
Key themes in proposals for change include building national standards for use of force and collecting officer discipline records in a national database.
If for some reason that federal policymakers are not successful in bringing in the right people, and then B, translating those people's ideas into policy, those are two big steps. And so if they're not successful in that, we're kind of stuck with it.
Across the country, a patchwork of collection efforts yields spotty data. Jonathan Haggerty researches criminal justice policy at R Street.
This data is so sparse in a lot of fields of criminal justice, we don't really know the true scope of the problem.
Advocates looking for a discipline database want to avoid officers being fired for misconduct at one agency and finding a job somewhere else. Timothy Loman, the officer who shot and killed 12-year-old Tamir Rice in 2014, had previously resigned from a different force. A 2012 letter recommended he be fired for failing to follow directions. In 2015, the Obama administration proposed the DOJ form a database in conjunction with the National Decertification Index. It's a list of instances when officers' licenses were taken away in connection with police misconduct. It has 28,000 entries. But that joint database never got off the ground. And police interest groups worry about officer safety if disciplinary records are public.
That has been a constant concern that is raised, but it hasn't been supported by a lot of empirical data.
Professor Jody David Armour is a USC law professor.
No one wants to suffer what they consider unfavorable reviews or evaluations.
If we're prioritizing policies here in terms of trying to hold problem officers accountable, the first fight has to be with unions.
Information on how officers use force, how often and why, is spotty too. The FBI launched a national data collection program last year, but agencies only send in information voluntarily.
Congress gave the DOJ authority to make it mandatory if they wanted to.
In its pilot program in 2018, a little over 100 agencies reported. There are more than 15,000 law enforcement agencies in the U.S. On top of that, the Bureau only releases information to the public a couple times a year. Many activists want to see a national standard for use of force. At the moment, each state and each agency has its own requirements and policies on how police can react with force.
There may be some use of force standards that we can make more national. And there may be some that have to be more limited because there are local conditions that are nuanced and you have to be able to tailor your responses to those local conditions.
Haggerty says trying to apply reformed rules across the board may raise another issue.
We as Americans ask officers to do too much. We expect them to uphold the law, but also sometimes to be soldiers. We expect them to be social workers and counselors. And I think even if you paid them $1 million a year and gave them all the training in the world, they would not be able to accomplish that.
And activists worry trust that law enforcement can do the job they're asked to is dissipating.
The moral credibility of law enforcement is the glue that holds us together as a nation. When that glue isn't there, we're in a lot of trouble.
James Packard, Newsy, Chicago.